Hello, class is in session again here in Lecture Hall Room 101 of the Stately Apartment Academy. I am your Dean of the Apartment Academy and host, Daniel Cunningham. Here at the Apartment Academy, we serve to be the industry's only operations-focused podcast, which features insights from industry leaders, investors, vendors, and technology providers. So if you invest in multifamily real estate or you're involved in day-to-day operations of apartment buildings, we are your source for efficient operations and maximizing NOI. Today's podcast is with Bob Bradley. Bob is Senior VP of Sales for Leonardo 24/7. And full disclosure, Leonardo 24/7 is the other part of my persona. When I'm not here at the Academy, I work over there with Bob, and I think it's appropriate that we spend some time talking about Leonardo 24/7 here in the interest of our Academy's mission to educate you, the student, the listener, as to what the best practices and are right now in the industry and the technology that's available. And Leonardo 24/7 fits into that. So here's Bob. He's going to talk a little about Leo. So Professor Bradley, welcome to the Apartment Academy. Good to have you here today. Full disclosure, Bob and I are colleagues on my other side of the world over at Leonardo 24/7. But in the interest of the Apartment Academy talking about some of the must-have platforms and technologies out there, we'd be remiss if we didn't spend some time explaining what it is that Leonardo 24/7 does and the value proposition that the company brings to the industry. So Bob, great to have you on today to talk about that sort of stuff. If you don't mind, why don't you just kind of start off, Bob, by giving us broad strokes on what the value proposition for Leonardo 24/7, what problems are they solving?
Yeah, awesome. No, appreciate you having me on today, Daniel. So I think as we look at the world and as we look at multifamily in particular, there's on the resident side, the accounting side, the CRM side of the house, that's really been taken care of for years with PMS software. But when you look at the actual asset side of the operations side of the house, there's risk, there's inefficiencies, there's wasted dollars all over the place. And studies have shown that 85% of operators are still using spreadsheets and paper. And so what we're really trying to do is trying to change that, trying to bring them into the digital world and really try to help them reduce risk, reduce expenses, and increase employee efficiency. Now
that's obviously a really lofty goal. Talk a little bit about where does the rubber meet the road there? Like how does Leo accomplish all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just if you take a simple example, if you're an operator and you say you have 20 or 200 properties, and you want to find out, you want to get a monthly report, a latest status of were all the inspections and all the preventive maintenance tests done at every property last month. That may take hours of time for someone on site to gather that data, send it up. Someone has to aggregate it across those hundreds of properties. And by the time it gets to the person who actually needs that data, it could be weeks later, and you may have spent hundreds of man hours across your organization trying to get that data. And so what Leonardo does is, because we're monitoring and all of that data and people are using Leonardo, instantaneously you can look, not have to ask anyone, and know across your whole portfolio what's happening, what's not happening is probably the more important thing. And no one's wasting any time. No one has to lift a finger to do a report. You can just pop open your computer, pull up your iPad or your phone, and you can get the answer immediately. So that's just one example of how we're kind of helping streamline efficiency in the operations world. From the other 2 points that we talked about, reducing expenses, you just take, for example, when you talk of either repair and maintenance expenses, or even can you increase the useful life of your capital equipment? Studies have shown that if you do proper preventive maintenance on capital equipment, you could extend the life of that piece of equipment 10, 25%. I mean, those are real dollars. And so Leonardo helps you track that. From a risk perspective, there's risk all over every asset that's out there. And you just want to make sure that we're not going to eliminate slips and falls. We're not going to eliminate any other incidents that happen on property potentially, but we can make sure that we mitigate your risk and that you have procedures, that you're following the procedures, and that they're documented, so that if it does come down to some type of litigation, that you're going to be prepared and you're going to have all that in a timely manner, and you'll have a defensible case, and it will certainly help whatever the dollar mitigation would be for that incident. So those are probably the three major things we help you with.
So there's we've had a number of folks that have come on and from the operator side who have talked about the challenge in having an organization that's so personnel heavy. This business is very much a people business. Not only are people the clients in a way, but the companies need a lot of staff in the field to operate, especially when you look at like what kind of management fees are generated from that effort. It's really it's a ton of people for not a whole lot of revenue. So it's very thin margins, and the challenge that comes up is yes, the kind of thing you're talking about, which is like reporting. We don't have visibility in what's happening, but just getting consistency and getting the right people doing the right thing at the right time throughout the whole portfolio at every property, regardless of whatever institutional knowledge that person might come to the table with. That's one of the biggest challenges that operators are facing, is that kind of consistency and quality time after time, regardless of employee turnover, which is also big in this industry. So Bob, I'll turn to you. I mean, expand a little bit on that when you're talking about Leonardo 24/7 in terms of creating consistency and accountability. What's the magic? What's the secret sauce there?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest problems is when you talk about version control of anything, whether it's a document or if you're using spreadsheets and paper, there's a good chance that people are doing things in different ways, and they don't have the latest SOP, they don't have the latest checklist, they don't have the latest spreadsheet to aggregate, and to keep paper and kind of disassociated spreadsheets up to snuff so that they're consistent is literally impossible. And so you need a tool to do that, and you need a platform to be able to do that, to not only have the proper version control, but then also to make sure from a frequency perspective that's happening at the proper time, right? So even if you had everyone on the same checklist and the checklist had to be done monthly, well, you have no way to enforce if it's being done monthly if you don't have a process in place or someone that's monitoring that. And so that's kind of what our software platform does, right? It makes sure you have consistency across all of your procedures, all of your checklists, all of your inspections, preventive maintenance. And it also, from the frequency perspective and from the timing perspective, if you have to do this inspection quarterly or monthly or yearly, we make sure that that's happening. And if it's not happening, that you're alerted to that. So we really kind of solve those two problems, keeping the revision control in place, as well as making sure that once you have that revision control, then the frequency is matched with what you need. Therefore, your portfolio is going to be consistent.
Right. And that's where when we talk about automation, right? When you talk about automating best practices, that's really, I think that's what you're talking about there, is taking those policies and procedures and making sure they happen consistently with the right forms and that sort of thing. But it can sound, I know it sounds sometimes to clients like a lot of setup. First of all, some don't know if they have really complete policies and procedures. And Bob, it'd be great to talk about what we do in that case. But policies and procedures that have been written are oftentimes, they've been sitting in a binder for 10 years, or nobody even knows what's in them really. So that sounds like a heavy lift. If I'm going to automate all that, how does that happen? Maybe talk a little about the onboarding process and the initial engagement with clients, what that looks like, Bob, because it's different with Leo than I think it is with other software companies.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's a couple things to mention. First of all, just A, do you have policies and procedures? B, are they up to date and they haven't been looked at? So Leonardo solves that in a couple of ways. First of all, we have a great relationship with the National Apartment Association, and in conjunction with them, we've been able to build a library of best practices that we can make available to our clients. So if they don't have a particular best practice for a policy or procedure for a certain item, we can suggest that. Or if they're going through an overhaul of what's the best way to go, we can help them through that process. So that helps really to get you kind of the best of breed from policies and procedures. And then the second step, a lot of people, great analogy I use a lot is it's kind of like going to the gym. If getting to the gym is 80% of it, and every day you don't go to the gym is one more day that you're not going to reach your goal. And so this is the same way. We try to make it as painless as possible for our clients. And because they all think it's going to be a painful process, like, oh my gosh, you have to gather all this stuff. What am I going to do? And, so if they get us all of their policies and procedures, we do the heavy lifting to digitize all those, to get them into our system, to configure the system properly in exactly the way that they want to use it. And one of the great things about our platform is it's truly, kind of uber configurable and uber flexible. And what that means is you don't have to try to adapt your procedures to meet our platform. Our platform is going to adapt to how you actually want to operate your portfolio. And so with that flexibility, we really, we match exactly how you want to do it. Not, well, you have to change the way you're doing something because that's the only way it works in our system. So, and our implementation team, as I said, does all that heavy lifting. And, within 60 days, even with large portfolios, we are up and running in all facets of what we do on the operations platform.
I think one of the things that's interesting about the Leonardo team is that they have this exposure at very deep operational levels to both large and small operators alike, is to what their best practices are, what they're doing. And as a result, even for clients that come forth and have their own policies and procedures, I've seen the Leonardo team say, hey, look, we know that best practices are such and such. For example, we don't see a lighting inspection. You should probably be doing a lighting inspection. We have a form for that if you want to use it. Or you're doing you're doing an incident report, but you're not, collecting signatures, or you're not getting the names of witnesses. And, we suggest you add that into your report. And so there is this idea of a more consultative engagement when you deploy Leo than you can expect, I think, with most kinds of other kinds of software. And Bob, maybe can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's super important, right? Everyone has kind of their way of doing things. Every operator has their way, but it's also great to understand, your way may not be 100% correct. And you're right. We service over 1 million units, over 4,000 properties. And so we have a lot of data. We have a lot of best practices as to what works. And our team, a lot of them came from the industry and on property, so they understand what these people are dealing with, and they are able to make suggestions and recommendations if they see things that is really out of bounds or does not match really what is a best practice, or if they don't have a particular policy or procedure that should be normal for their type of property or maybe the region that they're in. And absolutely, that's tremendous value we bring to our clients to make sure that when they deploy, they're deploying with the best possible policies and procedures that are out there in the industry. And while they can still have their own twist on the world, that they make sure that we help them make sure that it can be the best that's out there, and at the end of the day, the best for their residents and for their employees. That's it's really what we're here to do.
So the onboarding is as painless as possible, as painless as you guys can make it. What's the time frame? Like, how much effort, what kind of lift is this just overall then, given that from execution of contract to having Leonardo deployed, Bob? How long does that take on average?
Certainly for a medium to larger size portfolio, 60 days is certainly a good average to think about. And part of that is dependent on the client, right? We do need to have their base policies and procedures so we can ingest those, review those, upload those, build all the forms, do all those kind of things. And then kind of the second part that's really important is once we get that all set up, that we want to make sure that we review that with the client so that they're comfortable with everything that's done. And so from a client perspective, they have a little bit of work to do on the front end and gathering information, getting that to us. We work hard, build everything, configure everything, get it ready, and then we have a review session to make sure that what we're doing they're comfortable with and matches what their expectations are. If we have to do any final tweaks, we will. Then we work on training their organization and training all the different type of roles to make sure that everyone understands why this is being put in place, and B, how it's going to help them, and C, actually how do they use it in their day to day. And so like I said, we're walking with them through the whole process. And then even after post-launch, we still continue to communicate with our customers on an ongoing, consistent basis, because things do change, whether you're adding or dropping properties, whether you're adding some functionality, whether you want to change a policy or procedure. We're going to make sure that that all those things are kept up to snuff. Maybe you have to have a refresher training for a certain region of your maintenance folks. All those kind of things, we make sure that that we're going to be walking the same journey with you for as long as you're a client of ours.
Yeah, I think you're touching on something else which I think is important to address, which is look, change is hard for anybody, for any organization, for any individual. Change is difficult. And Leonardo it represents a shift in the way that you do business. Rather than relying on people to be experts on site and to know it all and remember it all, you create an expert within Leo who's there to give guidance and provide the right form and inspection and process, et cetera. And so change management is a big part of the post-deployment as well. And you just alluded to this, like the account management team, they're really in touch with the clients. They're having regular discussions. Can you elaborate on what that looks like? The 6 months after Leonardo 24/7 is launched, I think again looks quite different than any other software that clients may have launched before. Would you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And there is so much power that Leonardo brings. It's a little bit like Excel. There's so much functionality that you may not choose to implement everything at once, depending on the size of your portfolio. And you may take 50% of our functionality and deploy it, and you may want to add more as you go on. We certainly do that. We monitor usage, so we want to make sure if all of your maintenance folks have been trained and they're supposed to be using this on a daily basis for work orders that are primarily coming from resident requests, for other inspections and their preventive maintenance. If we don't see that happening, we'll make sure that that we're communicating that back on an ongoing basis, and whether it's by property or just overall, let's figure out how we can make sure. Maybe it's a training issue, maybe it's a some other type of issue, but let's figure that out together and solve it. And the world does change. A great example is we have a module that's we call it a code compliance module, and that goes out and scrapes all of your local up to federal regulations, and we make sure and alert you that if there is a change in the code, municipal code, that you now have to be compliant to, that we make sure that that, okay, that's changed, and now that has a change in a procedure for you, you have to make sure that you're now, maybe it used to be an annual inspection, now you have to do it quarterly, or maybe it's a change to the way it does it. So so Leonardo is always kind of on watch to make sure that as things change, we help you implement those and get those into your process.
So we've you just alluded to, there's a lot of power in Leo. There's a lot that Leo can do. And I think that that's probably one of the big competitive differentiators, is the breadth of workflow and processes and just real problems, just period, that you can solve. But Bob, if you wouldn't mind, can you talk through some of the feature set that I think are most commonly utilized?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. We talked about before about kind of on the front end of the house or the resident facing, portals. It's accounting, it's CRM, it's your resident portal, and that we have connectivity to all the major players out there because a resident may request my air conditioner isn't working properly, right? So they send in a request, which turns into a work order. It gets transferred back to Leonardo. So work orders are certainly kind of a meat and potatoes of what we do. We also have this concept of tasks and workflows are a kind of collection of tasks. And these could be inspections, preventive maintenance, all those kind of things that in some other systems, it's really not set up. They try to fake it with a work order, and they try to create a work order and put all of their PM in to one work order and then shoot that out on the first of the month. And by 8 a.m., it's clicked as done. Well, we know that doesn't happen, right? And so we've thought about that and purposefully put in, these concepts of tasks and workflows that allows you to accomplish all that. I mentioned code compliance, which I think is a big thing for us to be able to kind of scrape what's going out there in the municipal code world to make sure that you're up to snuff. Some other features that we have that a lot of clients use that think is great is one is we call it on-demand instructions, and basically we talked about the challenge, very employee people intensive environment that we deal in, and turnover is 40-50% a year at a property, and now you have the problem. You have a new maintenance person on staff, and he's out doing an inspection or a PM for a piece of equipment. He has no idea what he's doing. Well, what's he going to do? Walk back to the office, take the cart back to the office, find the book, figure out where it is, and then go back out. He's just wasted an hour. Well, with Leonardo, he could pull that up right in the app, and that inspection or preventive maintenance steps will walk him right through what he has to do. So people use it as a great training tool or a refresher tool, for employees. Once again, increasing that efficiency. We also have we do a lot from an inspection standpoint with kind of move in, move out inspections. That's a real opportunity for an operator and an owner to actually not be able to recover damages from that were made from the tenant because you don't have proper documentation or accurate documentation or timely documentation. That's something else that people use this for and can really, not that it's a money maker, but you're going to recover, it's going to reduce the write-offs that you have for that. And then, we also have other features like Messenger, which is kind of, take it as Slack on steroids. And it really allows for instant communication, not only within the employees, but you also have the opportunity, if that's a methodology that you want your residents to interact and place work orders from a texting perspective as opposed to going into a portal. So there's a lot of stuff that Leonardo does. And as I said, at some point, some people may think it's overwhelming, and we want to make sure that we're solving a client's primary needs first. And then as they get that up to speed, then we introduce them to all these other neat, cool, and advanced features that they could be using to help out and streamline their operations even more.
Of all of those features, Bob, what do you think most sets Leonardo apart from other software platforms that sometimes get confused with Leonardo 24/7 as being a competitor?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think two fronts. First of all, when you look at everything from operating an asset, we do everything you need to do, right? So you don't have to go get 4 or 5 disparate tools. And, we really are the best in breed in everything that happens. And there are a lot of, there are a handful of point solutions out there. And, then you have to get another point solution, and then they don't talk together, and talk with each other. And now you have different reports and all those kind of things. So, the fact that we are, kind of soup to nuts on the operations side, I think is critical and why people like us. And I think the second point of that is what I talked about before, just kind of the flexibility and configurability that Leonardo has, where you're not having to change your process to fit the point solution that you just purchased. We'll be able to adapt Leonardo to how you want to operate your your properties in your portfolio. And I think those are the two reasons why people buy us, and why they love us, and why they're clients for life.
Is there I don't know, maybe give some examples of the pain points that most commonly drive people to choose Leo. How should, if someone's listening right now and they're deciding, like, am I ready for Leonardo 24/7? Should I consider Leonardo 24/7? What pain points should they be feeling that would indicate, hey, this is something I should be looking at?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think the first thing to do is just to look at what you're doing today, and how big you are, and how fast you want to grow, right? So if you're operating or managing 2 properties, you could probably do that with paper and spreadsheets. If you're above 20 or so properties, upwards into the hundreds, there's no way that you could do this with paper, or with spreadsheets, or with disparate systems, right? And so you have to look at that first, and then you have to look at secondarily, where are your big problem points? Is it do you have a problem with risk, right? Where you're spending a lot of money trying to litigate claims that you're not able to justify? Are you are your folks in the field continually turning over at 60 or 70% instead of 40 or 50%? And is it because they're overworked and they don't have the right tools, and you need to give them a solution? Is it the fact that you can never know what's happening at any one of your properties, because by the time you get the data, it's 45 days old and probably inaccurate. And when you get the data, is it all disparate and not consistent? Or is your problem the fact that you're continually replacing and having to go back to your owners and saying that a piece of equipment that should have lasted 10 years only lasted 3? And then you have to own up to the fact that, why did it only last 3? Well, I don't know. Did you ever do PM? Well, what's that, right? And so you have to really figure out what your own pain point is. But I think they really fall into those 3 buckets, right? Are you trying to reduce risk because that's a problem? Do you have a lot of efficiency issues? Or do you really have expenses that are out of control? And that could even include insurance premiums. As you know, they're going up in 10 to 40% a year, and that's just it's just untenable. And if you're able to prove to the brokers and the carriers that you've not only have SOPs, but you've actually implemented it or tracking a process, and you can prove that that's paying dividends at your properties, that's an opportunity to have a discussion, to maybe have a real impact on that part of the expense profile.
Well, Leonardo's not an expensive product. I would characterize it as a fairly affordable product. Bob, just generally, I know it varies based on portfolio size and maybe some of the things they're launching, but generally speaking, Bob, what can folks expect to pay for Leo? So
in general, if you want to think about it, we can fit it to a couple pricing models. We can either price per property, or a lot of people like to think about it per unit. Sometimes that's easier. So, if you think about it about $1 or so per unit, since a lot of other things are broken down per unit, that's probably the easiest way to understand what that is. Certainly we have kind of one-time configuration fee up front, because, as I said, we're doing a lot of the heavy lifting to get that going. But from an ongoing perspective, that's a good ballpark to think about, and it does vary based on size and scope of what you're actually doing.
Okay, so a lot of features, a lot of problems to solve, a lot of value. But I'm sure you get asked this question from clients that you're going out to introduce to the program: is there definitive ROI? I mean, some of the things you're talking about sort of feel like it's difficult to establish our ROI. Like I mean, the idea is to avoid problems. The idea is to avoid people getting into trouble by doing preventive maintenance, et cetera. Like, how do you quantify ROI of stuff like that?
Yeah, and we really, we've come up with an ROI tool, ROI calculator, and we really did that to help these operators understand not only the power of Leonardo, or to move to one of these platforms, but they actually need to see it and believe it because they have to go out and talk to the owners and get them to understand that this is just not another expense that they're trying to tack on for no benefit. And so we really believe that the ROI tool and calculator is great for the operators to see and believe it, and then we can track it with them, but also to help message that to the owners. And we break it down into the same buckets that we had talked about earlier. Efficiency. We can document the fact that if you don't have to have people at the property compiling reports on a monthly basis, they're going to save time by not having to do that. And and that weaves into part of the calculation. If you have incident reports that are all buttoned up and immediately sent to your legal department at corporate, anytime something happens, then they're gonna save time by having to track down all that information when something has to be litigated. And same with the expenses. We're able to track the fact that once you're doing preventive maintenance, and there's a lot of studies out there that says as you do preventive maintenance and you can track as you do it, you're going to extend the useful life of that equipment by a certain percentage, right? And then the same thing with repair and maintenance expenses. You can make sure that you can start to track over time. Are you actually, because you're doing inspections on a regular basis and because you're doing preventive maintenance, do you have less work orders, right? And over a year or 2 years, you'll be able to see that decrease. And all that data is valuable. We use a lot of industry averages and industry statistics for someone to actually get a good baseline of what a return is. But I mean, our returns are in the double digits, right? It's greater than 10 to 1. Your payback is in months, not years. And so, while every operator, every portfolio is slightly different, it's pretty dramatic. And, I think people actually have to see those kind of numbers to say, okay, this certainly makes sense. I really need to move off of paper and spreadsheets onto a system. Leonardo seems like it's a great opportunity. Let's do this. Let's continue to measure. Let's get better. Let's try to beat these ROI numbers. It also helps a little bit with the whole change management because change is difficult, right? But if you can see all these opportunities to reduce risk and increase efficiency and reduce your costs, you're going to want to start now. And so we just give them the tools to help them digest that and help sell that internally to their owners.
Yeah, lucky you. I mean, when we first started the company, Bob, we didn't have any sense of ROI at all and how we would get there. Companies like Lincoln and Greystar and FPI. I mean, they were adopting Leonardo early on because they knew that they understood, they were keenly aware there's a lot of operational risk in multifamily apartment operations. And when you have large portfolios, like lightning strikes from time to time, you might run, 5 properties and never have a bad thing happen. When you have 100 or 200 or 1,700 properties like Greystar, like literally lightning is striking, but bad things are happening in addition to that on a regular basis. And so you're more keenly aware and I think seeking to solve that through more efficient technology. But what we always used to say is, Leonardo can track the minutia and you can focus on the things that matter most, like raising rents and raising occupancy and your marketing. That's also hard to quantify what the value of that is. Like to have your regional managers focused on that sort of thing rather than did the battery get changed on the golf cart, or did the filters get changed, or I think there's a lot there that's over and beyond what I think you're talking about these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And even you look at you can take something really simple as for all your maintenance employee, what is their satisfaction and what is their turnover, right? And is there a correlation between if your maintenance folks are more satisfied at their job because you're giving them the tools to do their job faster, more efficiently, whatever? A, do they stay longer? B, are they nicer to the residents? C, do they turn work orders faster and resident requests faster? And does that keep your occupancy higher, right? There's a lot of things that as you connect the dots and look at correlations, where we're certainly helping out in a lot of areas for your overall portfolio health, not just on operations. And so when you add all those things in, the returns and the benefits are even better. But it takes a village, and we're just there to try to help as best we can. But I think we impact a lot from for our clients. And as you said, some of them early on said, I know this is going to help, and we're just going to take the leap of faith. And as time goes on, I think in 3 to 5 years, instead of 15% of the operators using a platform like Leonardo, you'll probably see 85%. And that's going to be great for the industry, right? Good overall. And we hope that we're going to play a strong part of that over the years.
So if anything that we've talked about today, Bob, is appealing to anybody who's listening, how can they get in touch with you, find out more about Leonardo 24/7?
Absolutely. Love to talk to any operators, any owners. You can certainly feel free to give us a call. You can, we have forums on our Leonardo247.com website. If you're a member of NAA, as I said, we have a strong relationship with NAA and offer a product through them called Click and Comply. And happy to, if contact your local affiliate, go to the NAA website and request more information as well. My team's also out there at events and trade shows and conferences, and glad to see that they're starting to happen again this year. So everyone seems to be excited about that. But give us a call, fill out the form. We'd love to have a conversation, understand what your needs are, your pain points are, and hopefully we can solve them. If we can't, maybe we'll at least give you some great pointers if you choose to go in another direction. But love to have the opportunity.
Cool. Bob, good seeing you. Thanks for spending some time talking about my, admittedly my favorite subject, Leonardo 24/7. Appreciate your time. All right. Well, class is now dismissed here at the Apartment Academy. We appreciate you logging in and joining us to hear what Bob Bradley had to say about Leonardo 24/7. If you've enjoyed these podcasts and you feel like your management company could use a little advice from some of the professors here at the Apartment Academy, then go to our website, apartmentacademy.com, and click Help Me. And we'll send you a questionnaire and provide individualized responses to your answers at no charge that I guarantee will offer you insights on ways that you can immediately improve apartment operations. Until next time, I'll see you around campus.